Happiness through curiosity on the Ranveer Show. This masculine aging thing, which is the natural decrease of testosterone, this happens even to like the healthiest guys. And this is the kind of conversation I'm having with a lot of friends my age. In terms of we all watch cricket growing up, football, why do players' performance start dipping at 30, 35? It's effectively a decrease in testosterone, which then leads to other physiological changes in your body. We had Muralidharan on the show, and I was arguing that no, Kohli has at least 5-10 years left. He's like, no, as a cricketer, your eyesight gets affected after a certain age. It's just the outcome of age. How are you able to see the ball? I would argue that it's one of many physiological changes that happen with age, but the base physiological change that happens in an active guy's body is a natural decrease in testosterone. I also want to talk about prostate and all that later.
No, I will talk about it.
Oh, it's linked to this?
No, I'll talk of what is called androgen deficiency in aging male. This is called ADAM.
This is natural, right?
This is natural.
So talk about it starting from my age, 30.
Yeah. So we'll talk about
what's happening in my body right now.
So we have a person who has been exercising, who's been looking at his muscles. He has a certain testosterone. And slowly, because all of us are expected to get into our routine work, which does not involve exercise, unfortunately. So what happens is that the testosterone, because as we have menopause in women, there is something called andropause in men. The only difference is that in menopause, you have a clinical sign of cessation of periods, whereas in men, there is no clear-cut sign and it is a gradual process. For example, what we believe is that illnesses, so you get into an injury. Suppose some boy gets into an injury at 30, he is bedridden for say 10 days. His muscles are not used for 10 days. His basal testosterone level falls. Then he goes for rehab. Everybody doesn't go for training as you see in certain movies where somebody has got a blade and is running and whatnot. Everybody goes back to work, office perhaps. So they don't bother. So suppose your testosterone was say 600 nanograms per ml and you have been in bed for say 15 days because you had a fracture or you had a fever or typhoid or a viral illness which was prolonged.
Or you're just burnt out because of work.
No, I'm talking about a very specific thing, injury to the body, which reduces your physical activity.
Fair, okay.
So when your physical activity is reduced, your testosterone consumption is reduced, your basal testosterone level falls. So your testosterone was 600, you get hit by a car, you get into a hospital for 6 weeks. When you wake up when you get out of the hospital, your basal testosterone is supposed say 400. Then you start coming back to work. You are not rehabilitating as a physical activity, but then you are good enough to go to office, so you start going to good enough to go to office. So testosterone may increase from say 450, from 400 to 450. It doesn't go to 600. So every single episode that occurs to us beyond 30 years of age brings down our testosterone to a level which is not recoverable. So slowly, suppose from 30 to 40 years, in those 10 years, you had 5 such episodes where you had to stop exercising. Your basal your basal testosterone today is 600 nanograms per ml, but it will drop down to 400 simply because of these conditions.
Snakes and ladders means the snakes.
Yes.
Which bring it down.
That's right. Here, you may go back again, but you will never reach there. That is the issue.
What's a practical version of this? Matlab, practically, in what kind of career does someone keep getting injured or keep falling ill?
No. Falling ill, we all have like viral fever, typhoid, diarrhea.
So,
any small.
The reason I'm asking that is I'm trying to understand this whole prevention is better than cure situation. While there is no complete prevention here, maybe one way to prevent this snakes and ladders, snake situation happening is you work on your immunity.
Yes. So I'll talk about one more point here. So suppose you had 600, you fell down, you came out of the hospital at 400. If you consciously want your testosterone to go back to 600, how many of us know that we need to go back? You will start exercising. You will build up your muscle again. you will look at your diet critically. So in India, what happens if you are sick? They give you desi ghee, which increases your fat, which decreases your ability to exercise, because if you are running at 45 kgs and now you're running at 60 kgs, you are adding 15 kgs load to yourself. Your performance reduces, your testosterone consumption reduces, so your testosterone production reduces. So if we were to get a lesson from this talk, it is that if I get sick and I'm off my exercise for say 15 days, I must make sure that I go back to my previous exercise level and understand that my stamina should be like that. This is the least we should be doing. Despite this, it will still decline. There will be factors which will accelerate this decline, like competition at work, fight with your spouse, problems with parent-teacher meeting, problem with the neighbor, all these things, because you're thinking, suppose you had a fight with your neighbor. So the fight doesn't end because you're going to see him again tomorrow. So it gets recreated. The stress gets recreated. So you get into a circle of stress. This stress is the one that accelerates the decline of testosterone.
Basically, when your life is stressful, there's a steady decrease of testosterone. So other than focusing on your immunity and your exercise and your diet, try having a slightly stress-free life. You know how to navigate through stressful situations, because stressful situations cannot be avoided. That's just how life is. I think it's your reaction that you can like.
Exactly. So you modulate. So when I go back to my college and meet my friends whom I met in 1981, we are freshers. We are being ragged by our seniors, and 4 of us are together today. We are now 18-year-old boys.
Yeah.
That takes away the stress.
De-stressor.
That's right. Stress buster. So that is what is stress buster.
Fair.
That is important for us.
Family time.
That's right.
Etc. Like all the
Family
things that...
time, cousins, friends.
Travel.
These are all de-stressing.
I would argue, again, this is just my own experience, like my meditation has helped me too much. Like in terms of navigating through situations and changing my reactions to bad situations. Because in business, it's a stream of lafde, like problems. But to be able to detach yourself from that.
Life.
So, I mean, I would argue meditation, sound sleep.
So I'm coming back to, if you were to ask me meditation, I will talk of yoga.
Yeah.
So what is meditation basically? Meditation is something that you want to take yourself away from the surroundings and get yourself within yourself. They say you connect with Paramatma. That is different. That's something which I will not talk of now. We'll talk some other time. But then if you have confined yourself, that means you're taken away from your career, from your neighbor, from your fight anywhere else, and you're able to compose yourself, retract and compose yourself. That is meditation. So when you're doing this, you are calming down the sympathetic activity and activating the parasympathetic. And parasympathetic activity is good de-stressor.
But so what are these two?
So I will tell you. So sympathetic is something where you have fight or flight. Suppose you are going on a road and suddenly there is a dog or a wolf that attacks you. So you have two options, either to fight or fly. So whether you fight or whether you run away and retract or save yourself, the idea is to save yourself. Your stress, that is the stress. So that is adrenaline. So that is the adrenaline rush. So adrenaline rush is the sudden form. Cortisol is delayed form. Adrenaline comes like this and goes back, and cortisol goes like this. So it is fight or flight is adrenaline. So your pulse increases. It goes to maybe 120. Your blood pressure increases. The blood is taken away from your intestine and is given to your muscles. So bazu phadak rahe hain, jisko bolte hain. So the blood is actually flowing from all the internal non-significant organ at that time, which becomes the stomach, the intestine, and the reproductive system, the blood and the fat, and it is all channelized towards your muscles and bones and brain. So that is adrenaline, and that causes the stress reaction. Parasympathetic is calming. For example, if you look at the pulse of 10 people in a class, the same age, same frame, there'll be a person who would have a pulse rate, normal pulse rate is 80. So there'll be a person who has a pulse rate of 90. So this guy is fidgety all the time, and he's doing something or the other, some mischief, or somebody is doing a mischief to him or whatever, or he's reacting to a mischief or something. Then there's a boy whose pulse rate is 50, and you look at him, he's a basketball player, he's a tennis player. So what happens when you're playing? Your vagal tone increases. So parasympathetic reduces the heart rate, sympathetic increases the heart rate.
What is vagal tone?
Vagus is the main nerve from brain. It is a 10th cranial nerve which supplies the heart and other visceral organs. And vagus is the harbinger of parasympathetic activity.
Like the spine for your parasympathetic nervous system.
So coming to that, because it runs, parasympathetic chain runs from there. There's a sympathetic chain, then the parasympathetic plexuses are there.
And physically, where is it?
Physically, it comes from here, across here, and goes into the heart and lungs, and then goes in deep into the abdomen, into the stomach. So it has activity on the secretion of acid in the stomach. It has an activity on the motility of the stomach and the what we call the pacemaker of the gastrointestinal tract.
Fair to say it's responsible for the things that are not voluntary?
That's right.
Okay.
So sympathetic and parasympathetic parts are the autonomic nervous system. And autonomic nervous system, normally we are not supposed to have a control on them, but yogis in our culture, they are supposed to control the autonomic nervous system. So autonomic means which cannot be controlled. They are autonomous. But if you happen to control them, then you become a yogi. And
for example, autonomic would be all the heartbeat, etc. Even that's happening because of your nervous system. Versus when you lift your arm, this is your motor nerves. But that signal to lift the arm is coming from your own brain.
So it is the involuntary activity going on inside your body is autonomic, which means that your brain doesn't control it. Your conscious brain doesn't control it. Your brain stem controls it. So that is the autonomic nervous system.
And this is divided into sympathetic and parasympathetic. Sympathetic is related to fight or flight, where your body is in a stressful zone, which is actually most of the urban populations who are going about their work, who are going about traffic, who are getting into fights on the road. Their sympathetic is activated way too much.
Advanced.
And here the angle is you need to actually activate your parasympathetic much more.
So the answer to mental stress is physical stress.
Wow.
So if you see there are people who will go and bang their heads or whatever, what are they trying to do? They're trying to find a solution how to reduce their stress or outburst, what we call. So for example, if you are angry, you go and you have a swim, you get calmed down. Or you hit the gym, you do 200 squats and then you are done. You get over it. You come back and you say, to hell with that fight.
Yeah.
So the answer to mental stress is physical stress. Now you look at parasympathetic and sympathetic. So physical stress, as I said, a tennis player, a good tennis player, professional tennis player, they have a pulse rate of 35, 40, which is extremely good and healthy for the heart. And, because they are physically active. So their mental stress is supposed to be much less than what mental stress, not while they're playing, but their baseline mental, they're usually contented. If a swimmer, when he comes back, he's done his swim and he knows, yes, I've conquered what my target was, enough, to hell with everybody else. So that's how it works. So sympathetic activity and parasympathetic activity. So there are ways to control parasympathetic activity. And one of them is meditation. The other is, of course, certain asanas. For example, Bhujangasana or Tadasana. And if you go back, what you just mentioned, the spine, the paraspinous, the core muscles of the spine is supposed to be erect because of 4 pillars of muscles around the paraspinous muscles. They're the anterior 2 and the posterior 2 paraspinal muscles. And if you stretch the spine and divide the weight on this completely, it is actually de-stressing.
Wow. Which is
And
why
so
a yoga session feels so relaxing.
that's right. They start with Tadasana. Then they
Mm.
go to Bhujangasana, which is Cobra.
Yep.
And then they have something like
Downward dog.
Yeah.
Which stretches your heel right up to your hand.
Yeah. So these asanas and meditations were a yogic way of calming the human body, taking away the stress, reducing the sympathetic activity, and remaining calm with the increase in parasympathetic activities. And this, if you have a parasympathetic activity which is high, then obviously, if you have more testosterone.
Mm.
So sympathetic activity is adrenaline and cortisol.
Mm.
Cortisol causes fat and suppresses testosterone. So they're all interlinked. I can link autonomic nervous system to testosterone.
Gotcha. I think we gave a very nice angle on a healthy way to age as a man. It's all the basics plus play a competitive sport ideally, but also try practicing your yoga and meditation. It physiologically will calm you down and therefore elongate the lifespan of your testosterone levels. Hey, if you enjoyed this clip from the Ranveer Show, we've uploaded a ton of other clips related to a ton of other topics. So explore the channel because there's something for everyone.